Hey there, guys. John here at the AMC Movie News, and I am really happy to be joined by Ben Kendrick from ScreenRant.com. Ben,
Hello.
thanks a lot.
For sure.
Uh, we are also joined by Mike Sampson of Screen Crush.
Hey, everybody.
We are joined by Jennings Roth Cornett, also of AMC Movie News.
Hello.
And Silas Lesnick of ComingSoon.net. Silas, thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me.
All right, so last night, around midnight, I'm getting ready to fall asleep, and my email bings off, and I'm like, oh, who's emailing me this time? And, of course, it's the notification that the Iron Man 3 trailer has come out. And so, Silas, let's start with you. Your general impression of the Iron Man 3 trailer.
It got me really excited. It just looks like a lot of fun. I would see any movie in the Marvel Universe on the big screen, and I would also see any Shane Black movie, so I can't see how that's not a winning combination.
Roth, your thoughts?
It was pretty much everything I wanted from Shane Black because, you know, they've been talking about the darker tone since the beginning, since he came on board. But also that action sequence was pretty freaking amazing with the destruction of the seaside mansion. But I wonder, I mean, I said this earlier, I wonder if they almost showed too much. I mean, they have to have a lot else up their sleeve if they're showing that in the first teaser.
Mike, what about you?
I really liked it. I mean, I'm not 100% sold yet on Ben Kingsley as the Mandarin. Some of it just feels... I just want to see a little more of it yet before I kind of decide on whether I'm down with him. As for what Roth is saying, I think that looks like a great action set piece, but just going by what we can see in that trailer, that's got to happen at least halfway through the film, which means there's got to be another big third act set piece that we're not seeing anything from yet. And I have a feeling that's going to be the big action sequence in the movie that has to sort of one up the other one, so it looks like there's still a lot of tricks up their sleeves when it comes to Iron Man 3.
Ben, how about you?
Yeah, I mean, it does seem like there's a lot we still don't know. We've seen the plot synopsis and we've heard rumors, and the trailer sort of hints at some of the things we've heard about, but that action scene is pretty, for a mid, just like you're saying, Mike, for sort of a mid-movie action scene, you know, it definitely leaves a lot to the imagination of what we're going to see at the end. I was sort of amazed by how dark the end of the trailer is, especially. Like, we've been hearing a lot about that darker tone, but I mean, the trailer ends on a pretty like hard note with him sort of sinking down into this abyss, and you know, the light going out, and then the light comes back on. That's great, but he's not full Iron Man or anything, right? And it's especially for this character that everybody, you know, like, is sort of the comic character of a lot of the movies that they do. So
and to your point about it being dark, I mean, not even that last part with him sinking down to the abyss, but after the final title screen, and there's just no sound, no music, and it's just Tony dredging through the snow, which I think it's his Iron Man armor that he's dragging along behind him. Very solitary. Right. You know, I think there's a huge letdown potential for a trailer like this and how much hype it's been getting. But I got to tell you guys, I love this, and the thing I love most about it is, and tell me if you agree, but to me, it really had an Empire Strikes Back sort of feel to it, like the darkest times of our hero. And one of my favorite things, when we were at Comic-Con, I know most of us were there, and Shane Black was talking about how, you know, we really want to emphasize the humanity of Tony Stark. Look, coming out of Avengers 2, he was just in the darkest reaches of space, seeing an alien race coming to wipe out humanity. He goes, you can't go through what he went through and not be very, very deeply troubled and affected by it. And then we see the trailer start, and he is talking about New York. He's talking about how he can't sleep and all that kind of stuff. And that kind of stuff, that's what impressed me the most about this trailer, the really going on the humanity of it. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's definitely true. They really are sort of going for it. And his voiceover in the trailer is very, like, the portions of it that are his voiceover are very solemn, and they're very kind of, you know, insightful in terms of kind of how an experience like that would change, you know, this comic book character. It does bring a lot of humanity out of him, I think.
I think that, can Kevin Feige kind of say what they wanted to do with this one was take it back to where it was in the first film, where he's in the caves and it's just Tony Stark and his wits against the world, basically, well, in this case, against Mandarin. But I think that's what they're trying to do, because that's what we loved seeing. We loved seeing the evolution of that character. And Tony Stark has so much going for him in terms of money and resources that I think what they want to do now is put him in a position where he doesn't have those things and he has everything to lose. And I think that that's a lot of ways going to be Pepper, you know. But he has everything to lose, and what is he going to do? I think that's going to be really fun to watch.
This almost seems like the movie that Iron Man 2 should have been. You know, like John, you were talking about
Oh,
this.
so yeah, absolutely.
Sort of has like an Empire Strikes Back-ian sort of feel to it. And as you're watching it, it's almost as if they're sort of writing Iron Man 2 out of the canon and just going, this should have been the sequel. I mean, this would be perfect for it. Judging by what we've seen so far, this looks like this should have been the follow-up to the original Iron Man. But
Silas?
I've actually sort of mellowed on Iron Man 2. I've come to appreciate it a lot more. One thing I would like to point out, I think it's an assumption to say that this is happening in the middle of the movie. And just the tone of the trailer that we're seeing has a sort of flashback quality to it. His house being destroyed could be the first scene of the movie, and then we go back from there.
Right.
Here's a question. We've heard her mention that, hey, she's getting kind of old for these roles, blah, blah, blah. Does Pepper Potts die in this movie?
Well, you see somebody in the trailer, if you kind of pause it, an Iron Man regular who looks like they're not in very good shape. And it doesn't look like they're afraid of killing people off in the Marvel Universe, so I think it's certainly a possibility. Whether or not that person is Pepper, I think remains to be seen. But I think they're certainly putting that out there as if that is, you know, those are the stakes. You know, Pepper's life is kind of on the line here.
It would be like an interesting way to sort of have to balance that, though, because if it is a darker movie, I mean, Pepper wouldn't probably die at the beginning of it, and I mean, maybe she would, and maybe you're right, in Silas about like the flashback structure or something like that. But I mean,
all I can think of is Iron Eagle 2, where Louis Gossett Jr. or the kid from the Iron Eagle 1 dies right at the beginning. Maybe that's what they're going for.
Maybe so. It's just like, that's a dark place to take it, especially if that would happen at the end of the movie. But it would set it up for an interesting conversation about where he would go after this movie as they sort of try and team up again for the Avengers and how that might change his perspective. But
yeah, it would. And I think it's important to Robert Downey Jr. to have that relationship with Pepper. He really pushed for it. And so it'd be kind of fun to see. And I could see him wanting to establish it, make it the most important thing in his life. I mean, that's right there in the trailer, and then take it away from him. And then what?
Yeah.
Although I don't want to see her die.
Mike, you mentioned something very interesting about that you didn't quite buy into the Mandarin. I remember them talking about Mandarin and saying, look, they decided to go with a more ethnically ambiguous Mandarin because they were afraid, let's face it, they're afraid of the same feedback and lashing that George Lucas got from Phantom Menace. They didn't want to have a really racially toned character. I got to tell you, I did buy into him as the Mandarin. I'm just curious, Mike, like you mentioned that you really weren't there yet with him. What was it about what you saw, which granted is a small sample, but
yeah,
what was it about that?
There's not a lot to go off. I think his voice is one thing that it just doesn't, something sounds off with it, and maybe it's like you said that they're trying to remain ambiguous in terms of his ethnicity, but I mean, it's the Mandarin. Half the movie's set in China. I mean, at some point you just have to embrace it. And part of it, you just look at it and it reminds me so much of other Ben Kingsley roles. He's got kind of a weird prosthetic nose. It just doesn't look right to me. I'm not sure what it is. Maybe it's because that they're playing him as an international terrorist, but he looks like a traditional Middle Eastern terrorist, but we know that he's Chinese. It just seems like they're overthinking that character when in reality it was a very simple villain to create. But I don't want to write it off yet. I mean, Ben Kingsley is a great actor, and I'm very intrigued to see what they did with it. Because like you said, they really didn't show us a whole lot, so I'm just kind of trying not to judge too much based off what little we saw or heard here.
I'm almost curious if the Mandarin isn't a character that Ben Kingsley's character has created to further his terrorist actions, that creating something ominous. There's something a little more theatrical about him than seems like it fits the tone of the film.
I agree. Well, okay, that'll do it for us. Folks, wherever you're watching this video, thanks so much for joining us and watching it. Jump into the comments section and leave your thoughts. What do you think of the Iron Man 3 trailer? I think all of us here agree that we like it a lot, so let us know your thoughts. Once again, I want to thank Ben for joining us. Visit his stuff over at ScreenRant.com.
Yep, thanks.
I want to thank Mike over at Screen Crush. Make sure you visit him over there.
Thank you so much.
Roth Cornett right here at AMC Movie News.
Thank you.
And Silas Lesnick over at ComingSoon.net. Thanks, Silas.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks, guys, and keep watching.